on Broadway, off Broadway. What's she up to? She's fabulous. Sara Bareilles. Come on in, Sara. And there she is. Hi, Sara. That's Max the dog.
I love how he greets everyone at the door.
How are you? So good to see you.
I have dog envy. I want a dog, and I think I'm not ready. I'm not ready for the commitment.
Right, because you're out and about too much. You're flying here and there.
Yeah, the schedule's definitely busy. Although I'm on a little bit of a break right now. But yeah, you got to be ready to take care of the dog and prioritize the needs of the dog. And I'm way too selfish right today.
Well, you're being fair is what you're doing.
Maybe.
You're doing the right thing. One day you're going to have time for a dog. Then you're going to be, oh my God, is my career failing because I have time for a dog?
I have all this time on my hands.
I'm going to have so many dogs eventually. I'll just be like, well, my career went to wherever.
A fantastic songwriter, fantastic performer. But then, Waitress on Broadway is doing so well. Your music, of course, featured in Waitress. Did you ever, in a million years, think your music would end up on Broadway being performed nightly by a cast?
No, I didn't. I grew up on musical theater, and I always loved, I did some performance, when I was growing up in our local community theaters. And I think I thought that maybe there would be a world in which I would be a performer. And when I moved to New York 4 years ago, I went on an audition that went very poorly. But I thought that I would...
Was that for Hamilton?
Yes. Turns out I wasn't what they were looking for.
You know what? You're the missing piece.
Yeah, right, exactly. I had also been brought in for this meeting with Diane Paulus, who's the director of Waitress, and she told me about the show, and it was in development, and I was sort of interested and intrigued by the idea of this monumental task, but really very concerned that I wasn't going to be able to pull it off.
What was it in you that she saw? But gosh, I got to get in touch with Sara Bareilles to do the music for our show.
My understanding is that there was a short list of writers. I've been told I was at the top of the list, but let's be honest. Who I think Adele didn't want to do it.
Oh, please.
No, I think, I was, like I said, on a list of writers, and we took a meeting, and I hadn't seen the film at that time, but I really responded to it, and I started sending in music, and it just kind of organically unfolded from there.
Like, what could you do on the side that could make you, push yourself to your limits, just like Sara did, to make it more interesting? I mean, could you have gone on that very successful path, just doing what you were doing? Or do you feel like something was missing and you needed something like this?
I felt like the gift of doing this show has been so nourishing for my soul. That sounds really maybe cheesy to some people, but I love my job. I love being a pop artist. I love songwriting. I love performing for people. But I think as you evolve, you start to, I think everybody can relate to this, where you start to just, what else? What else is there? How can, like, to your point, how can I be challenged? What else am I capable of? And getting outside of your comfort zone is so valuable in, first of all, realizing your limitations, but also realizing your strengths. And this particular project for me was so good because I'm not comfortable as a collaborator very often, and this is so deep. You are a team member through and through. There's no solo artists in the theater.
My experience at Waitress, you walk into the theater, having already seen the movie, I was like, okay, let's see what happens. It's going to have music. Okay, it's Sara Bareilles, love her. You walk in and the whole place reeks of a pie being baked, which I think is like the best idea ever. And I found out later these are not real pies I'm smelling. It's some kind of spray they're spraying around. It smells like pie.
False.
Really?
They're
Yeah.
real pies?
Oh, I thought it was one of those.
You can eat the pie. You can buy pie. But
You can buy pie,
pie.
but I'll tell you exactly what's happening. So our producer, Barry Weissler, this was his brainchild. There is a black box with a toaster oven in our lobby, and because we experimented with the synthetic smells, and they smell terrible. Like they don't. They
It's
smell
not real
fake.
pie smell? Because it smelled real to me, but I was like, they can't get this
It's a
theater
real,
filled
it's a
with
real
pie smell.
but it's not edible because the ratios of like cinnamon and lemon, they have to really bump up the cinnamon and nutmeg so it smells especially pungent, but it's not it wouldn't taste good if you
Well,
ate
I
it.
started salivating as soon as I
Yeah,
walked
me
into that
too,
theater.
me
I was
too.
ready to go.
A new pie every night? Like,
Yeah.
do they have to make a new one every night?
Yeah.
Huh?
They start baking it when doors open, and
It's
so
like-
then by intermission, the whole theater is your mouth.
Why
is
don't you
watering.
just forget the oven thing? Just buy a Yankee candle. Like pie scent. Let's go way back. Let's go back to Gravity, for instance, which was, what year was that? How long ago was that?
Well, that was on my first record, which came out in 2007, but that song had been around. I wrote that song when I was like 19 years old.
And I got to
And
ask.
I'm 23 now, so
Of course. I don't want to get too personal, but Gravity, I mean, it's such a very, very deep slicing song about realizing you're in a relationship with someone who just sucks the life out of you. I mean, were you actually
so poetic.
Were you actually in a relationship that sucked the life out of you? Is that where that song came from?
That song was about my first experience of heartbreak, and it was my high school relationship. So, and I look at it, I'm in my 30s now, I'm 36, and I look at it, my experience of love is very different at this point, but at that time in my life, that was devastating loss, to have your heart broken by someone. And I don't think you could have told me that anything could have been more painful than that at that time.
This show, Waitress, we want you to write music that fits the characters that are in this story. So then you got to read the story. You've got to get into the minds of these characters and write these songs. What is that process like?
I started, truly, I really had no idea what I was doing. And I started simply by just watching the movie and just getting a feel for the world that Adrian Shelley had created as writer-director. And I loved that it was strange. I loved that it was eccentric. I loved that there was like a lot of gray area for all. There was no clear hero. I mean, you're rooting for the lead character, Jenna, but she's not making mistakes with her life. I mean, she's definitely treading into uncomfortable territory. There's a lot of there's adultery in this show.
Yes, there is adultery.
There's a lot of that actually, and there's abuse, but there's also triumph, and there's also self-reflection, and I responded to the characters, and the first song that I wrote for the show was actually "She Used to Be Mine," and that's sort of the lead character's bottom of the well torch song, and that song sort of served as the portal into Waitress for me. I realized I can relate most closely to her story, but I could also find my way into each of these characters and sort of play with their personalities in a way and kind of find my own story inside of theirs.
I mean, when you're going to the Tonys, you're up for Tonys. Do you actually write an acceptance speech knowing that Hamilton is up for Tony? I mean, Hamilton. Are you tired of hearing the Hamilton questions? I mean,
No.
it's like, hello, there's more to Broadway than Hamilton. Don't shoot me for saying that.
I think, I was talking about this earlier. I think that Hamilton has been such a gift to the theater community in general. I mean, I'm sort of a newbie myself here, and I have observed how much of a spotlight that show has been for this community at large. So when people come to the theater and they have an exciting experience inside the theater, they want to see more theater. And really the theater community is not a competitive one, or that's not been my experience at all. Like I'm not even, being polite here. It's been so warm, and everyone really, they're rooting for each other.
Good.
And Hamilton is an incredible work of art. So I'm happy to celebrate something that is truly unique and probably a once in a lifetime experience.
Can you get us tickets?
Yeah, I brought 5.
I'm kidding. Stop
with
it.
me.
I'm sort of surprised, Sarah, that more and more artists aren't doing this, attempting to move over to the theater,
Yeah.
the theater channel on the.
I think it's definitely it's happening. It's bubbling, and you see, Josh Groban, who's a friend of mine, is now he's coming to Broadway, and Duncan Sheik has been writing for the theater for years.
Right.
Sting had his musical. Cyndi Lauper won the Tony for Kinky
Elton
Boots.
John.
Elton John. Yeah, it's a really vibrant community. it's just a lot of work. So
I want Lil
I
Wayne to
understand.
get Lil Wayne. What would Lil Wayne's musical sound like?
Put your hand on the toilet and your leg on the tub, girl.
I think that would make a great show. Lil Wayne. Can we get Lil Wayne in there? Why don't you call him up, Sarah? Give him some pointers.
Okay, all right.
Baby.
All right. Thank you, Scary. Waitress is still going so strong on Broadway. It's one of our best. It really is truly a unique experience. It's the first musical I've been to where you actually can smell it as you walk in the door. I mean, what other musical Rent had no smell. It smelled like the Lower East Village. It would be in the Lower East Side.
Cats probably has a smell.
Yeah, Cats. It smells like clumping formula.
Not a good one,
You
though.
don't go there. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you
We
for
appreciate
having
it very
me.
much. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.